we are going to take a break from talking about the complexities of the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas. Much has transpired recently, including the release of more hostages by Hamas and the release of Palestinian prisoners by Israel. Convoys of food and supplies have been allowed in to Gaza, and there was even a brief ceasefire, which sadly came to an end very recently. Nor tonight are we going to talk about the recent New York Times expose about the disheartening intelligence failures. Instead, tonight I wanted to take a little time to talk about another war that took place in Israel. But that war took place over 2 millennia ago. On this coming Thursday evening, we will begin the annual celebration of Hanukkah. As is noted in Reform Judaism, although according to Jewish custom, Hanukkah is considered a minor festival, today it ranks along with Pesach, with Passover and Purim, as one of the most beloved Jewish holidays, full of light and joy in family celebration. Unlike many Jewish holidays, however, Hanukkah, which is commonly referred to as a festival of lights, is not mentioned anywhere in the Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible. The historical events upon which the celebration are based are recorded in 1st and 2nd Maccabees, 2 books contained within a larger collection of writings known as the Apocrypha, though one could argue, as some scholars have, that the book of Daniel was actually written during the Hasmonean revolt and therefore is a book about the story of Hanukkah, but is written in code, and that is for a sermon for another day. In the year 168 BCE, the Syrian king Antiochus Epiphanes sent his soldiers to Jerusalem. The Syrians desecrated the temple, the holiest place for the Jews at that time. Antiochus also abolished Judaism, outlawing the observance of Shabbat and the festivals, as well as circumcision. Altars and idols were set up for the worship of Greek gods, and he offered Jews 2 options: conversion or death. On the 25th day of the Hebrew month of Kislev in 168 BCE, the temple was renamed for the Greek god Zeus. A Jewish resistance movement led by a priestly family known as the Hasmoneans, or more colloquially, the Maccabees, developed resisting the cruelty of Antiochus. Head of the family was Mattathias, an elderly man. His son Judah became the chief strategist and military leader of the resistance. Though outnumbered, Judah Maccabee and his fighters miraculously won 2 major battles, routing the Syrians decisively. Although historians debate the causes and outcomes of the war in which Judah Maccabee and his followers defeated the Syrian armies of Antiochus, there is no doubt that Hanukkah evokes stirring images of Jewish valor against overwhelming odds. Other themes of the holiday include the refusal to submit to the religious demands of an empire, practicing idolatry, the struggle against total assimilation into Greek culture and the loss of Jewish identity, and the fight for Jewish political autonomy and self-determination. At its heart, it was a war for religious freedom. Hanukkah, which means dedication, is a festival that commemorates the purification and rededication of the temple following the Greek occupation of that holy place. Today, the holiday reminds us to rededicate ourselves to keeping alive the flame of our religious heritage and culture and peoplehood, so that it may be passed on to the next generation. Now notice what I didn't mention in all of that. There was no mention of oil lasting for 8 days. We'll get back to that. But there is more to it than that. As Micah Halpern wrote for the Jerusalem Post a couple of years ago, Hanukkah is not the Jewish Christmas. I repeat, Hanukkah is not the Jewish Christmas. What Hanukkah is, quite frankly, is the most misunderstood holiday in all of Judaism. There are 2 parts to the Hanukkah story. The first part is found in Jewish sources, especially in the Talmud, in the tractate of Shabbat. It is a story of the single crucible of oil that lasted 8 days instead of just one. It is a very short Talmudic discussion, but it is there. It is recorded tradition. That's the story we like to tell, but it is a rabbinic story. It is not a historical story. And we'll get more into why in a few moments. The second part of the Hanukkah story, as we mentioned, is the tale of Judah Maccabee, who together with his family led the battle against the Syrian Greeks called the Seleucids and won. But the story of Judah Maccabee is more complicated and problematic. In fact, the rabbis edited out the story. It is not found anywhere in Jewish sources. Almost everything we know is mentioned is found in the Apocrypha of Maccabees, 1st and 2nd Maccabees, which was probably written centuries after this war. Apocrypha means hidden or secret books. These books were not put into the Hebrew Bible. They are not considered rabbinic works. They are considered outer books or Sifrei Hitzonim. The story of Judah and the Maccabees is clothed in controversy. There is no doubt that the rabbis knew about the battle against the Greek Seleucids. There is a reason explaining why the story of this battle and these heroes is left out of Jewish history. And there is a reason explaining why it is so central and so popular today. The rabbis shunned this battle because more than a battle between Jews and Seleucids, it was a battle between Jews and Jews. It was a civil war pitting Jew against Jew. It was a battle between the Hasmoneans, those Jews who rallied behind Judah the Maccabee, and those assimilationist Jews who followed Hellenized Greek customs and fell under the spell of the culture of the Seleucid Empire. The Maccabees refers to the conflict as a battle between the Hasidim, which meant something different at that time, the righteous, and the Mitnyavim, those who tried to be like the Greeks, the Jewish Hellenists. Had the story had a happy ending, the rabbis might have embraced the tale, but that was not to be. You see, a few generations after their victory against the assimilationists and the Greeks, the Hasmoneans chose to combine the priesthood and the kingship. They shunned Jewish law and tradition. They became corrupt and oppressive, and as a result of their poor decisions, Herod rose to power, who was the last of the Hasmonean kings, one of whom also welcomed in the arrival of the Romans, which utterly transformed Jewish history. The rabbis could not embrace that tradition and history, and so the story of the revolt did not make its way into the canon of biblical or rabbinic literature. So then, why is Judah Maccabee and his family's story become such a central part of the story of Hanukkah for us today? Great question. Thank you for asking. Here's why. The early Zionists were searching for models of Jewish fighters. They found the story of Judah and the Maccabees and elevated these long-ago warriors into the culture of Judaism. These Zionist leaders were not concerned with the essence of the story as the rabbis had been. They needed heroes who fought with weapons and who defended Jewish society and Jewish values. And the Maccabees fit the bill. These same Zionist leaders scoured history and found another story not to be found in Jewish rabbinic sources. They found the story of Masada, which comes to us from via Josephus, the Roman historian. Those warriors atop Masada were two Jewish fighters, but because they chose mass suicide over capture, the rabbis could never promote them as heroes. The mystique crafted by those Zionist thinkers did not just transform history, it shaped the image of Israel, of Israelis, and of Jews across the world. The Jewish hero, a defender fighting against great odds, became the model for the modern state of Israel. And that legacy lives on to this day. That is why Hanukkah is such an important holiday today. Not because it coincides with Christmas, and next year it really coincides with Christmas, and so that way we have something to celebrate like everyone else, but because, like the state of Israel today, the Jewish state, Hanukkah embraces the model that Jews were masters of their own destiny. So even though this war took place 2,000 years ago, its complexities and challenges still reverberate with us today. Hanukkah is not merely a story about the oil lasting 8 days, nor is it just a story about a Jewish revolt over oppressive rulers seeking to eradicate Jewish practice. Like all wars, the story of Hanukkah is messy, it is complicated, which now that I think about it, sounds strangely familiar. So as we light our Chanukiot on Thursday evening, may we remember the lessons of the Maccabees. May we be proud of our Jewish heritage, even as we may remain conflicted with some of the realities of Jewish life. Each war, we pray, will be the last war. And the time of the Maccabees was no different. As we sing tonight in their memory and honor with the words of Ma'utzur, Rock of Ages, let our song praise your saving power. Though amidst the raging foes was our sheltering tower. Furious they assailed us, but your arm availed us, and your word broke their sword when our own strength failed us. May our own strength not fail us. To borrow from the words of Micah and Isaiah, may all these swords one day be beaten into plowshares and spears into pruning hooks. Let nation not lift up sword against nation. Let them study war no more. And let all be safe under their own vine and fig. And when that day comes, may we get back to the real and true battle of Hanukkah, applesauce or sour cream. Shabbat shalom.